Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Karthik Godavarthi. I'm a faculty of anthropology here at Vajiram Ravi. Uh, I don't think you have attended my workshops earlier. Uh, and welcome to all those who are joining me online today. The purpose of this workshop is to ensure that or to help you make an informed decision about the optional that you may be taking for your mains examination. Optional is important for this exam because GS, anyway, is compulsory. And as far as the optional is concerned, it has 500 marks, and which may actually be a very important sheet anchor for your examination. Choice of the optional is also important because of a simple reason that it may have an impact on the quality of the answers you may be writing, not only in the paper, the subject, but also in your general studies as well as general essay. So what I will do is I will take you through the various aspects of anthropology. I will start off with what is anthropology very briefly, because this is not a subject that is popular in academics at least. And I will also talk about the syllabus. I'll give you a bird's eye view about the syllabus. And we will also see how anthropology can actually give you that extra edge when it comes to your general studies and the other papers like general essay, and the advantages of taking anthropology, and also some misconceptions about anthropology that many people have, which I'll try to clear as much as possible. And we will also look at what is the kind of methodology that we follow here at Vajiram, and how should one actually prepare for anthropology for civil service examinations. And I'll also try to answer any questions you still may have after I finish whatever I want to share with you. So any idea what is anthropology, anyone? No, absolutely. Never heard the subject before this exam? Okay. Anthropology, when you break this word anthropology, it's a Greek word, anthropos and logos. Anthropos is human or humans, and logos is science, reasoning, logic, or a systematic study. So when we take this etymology, the meaning of the word, it is the science of humanity. And no, Isha, anthropology is not just the study of evolution. That's one of the misconceptions people have. The moment you say anthropology, people conjure up the visions of bones and fossils or the tribes, but there's much more that we study in anthropology. I am an alumnus of University of Hyderabad. I passed out in anthropology in 1992, and I have been teaching for civil services for 3 decades now. Since 1993, I have been in this line. And I've done my research in Paderu area of Visakhapatnam district of Andhra Pradesh, and also amongst the Kodavas in Karnataka, amongst the Kurgs. And one of the areas of specialization that I have chosen is medical anthropology, where I was interested to understand the various factors that affect the delivery of primary health care in traditional and indigenous societies of India. And I also have been involved in consulting using anthropological knowledge and training in the domains of urban development, urban environment, and filmmaking. And anthropology is not just about tribes and evolution, because in fact, there are many career options in anthropology where people work in corporate sectors, people work in hospitals, people work in United Nations and various other developmental and multilateral agencies. So anthropology is everything human. I mean, anthropology literally is probably by virtue of its scope, the most comprehensive discipline ever that studies mankind. And it literally studies everything that touches the humanity and everything that the humanity touches. And I'm not exaggerating when I'm telling you this. And the fact that we call it simply a science of humanity implies that everything to do with the human species and human nature is studied in anthropology. And anthropology, we can also say, is trying to answer three fundamental questions about us, the humanity. So, who is man? Man here is essentially human, a gender neutral word. Where did we come from? This is where evolution comes in. And why do we act the way we do, or why do we behave the way we do? These, I would say, are three quintessential questions that anthropology tries to answer. And there's no limit to the scope of anthropology because of the complexity of human nature. We can say that anthropology studies everything about the human nature. And being a human is not easy. We have our human nature is something which is multidimensional. We have a biological nature. End of the day, we are biological animals. We share many of our characteristics with all the other living organisms. And we are the part of a class called mammalia, or the mammals, that, include one order called primates, in which are monkeys, apes, and the human being. And by virtue of our biological nature, we were able to, during the course of our evolution, develop other dimensions to our nature. One is the cultural nature. Like, take, for example, our symbolic way of communicating with each other, like language and speech. And culture also includes our value systems and belief systems. And then we also have a social nature. We live in groups, we live in society, and we organize our lives in a very sophisticated way. And in the process, we are actually trying to meet whatever are the needs of our life, as well as fulfilling the obligations for the society. So if someone asks us, what does it mean to be a human? Imagine an alien coming from another planet and bumps into you and asks you, what does it mean to be you? You get the right answers from the science of anthropology. It's not just we are not just a bag or a body of bones and blood like other animals, but we have also very sophisticated behaviors which are unparalleled in the animal kingdom. And we have been living on this planet for a very short time. We have evolved, probably the modern Homo sapiens, which is our biological name, has evolved about 55,000 years ago. There are other species of animals, which probably are there in this room right now, which have been living on this planet for millions of years. Human evolution, in fact, started millions of years ago, no doubt, but everything culminated into the modern Homo sapien only recently. And the word Homo sapien, which is our biological name, anytime have you wondered, what does it mean? Homo means man and sapien is wise. So this translates to the wise man. And where are we getting this so-called wisdom from? This wisdom is essentially our social and cultural behavior. And anthropology, for that reason, is considered to be a discipline devoted to a discourse on human nature. So when we say we study human nature, we take into consideration the biological, the cultural, as well as the social nature of man. So that's in a nutshell what anthropology is. And anthropology, as I told you, is the most comprehensive of all the disciplines that deal with mankind. And it is also offering a very unique perspective when we study man. We are not the only ones who study humans, by the way. All the social sciences also look at the human behavior. All the humanities are looking at some aspect of the human activity and human creativity. There are many life sciences like human anatomy, medicine, which all are also looking at mankind. But what makes us very special amongst the family of life sciences and social sciences, we embrace what is called as holistic, historical, comparative, and a functional approach to study the human nature. This makes us very special. I'm not going into details of explaining each and every one of that methods and methodology of anthropology, but holism is essentially looking at every aspect of the behavior in a very comprehensive way. We look at it from a panoramic perspective. Holism is not studying everything. Holism is trying to find the interconnections between the things which are seemingly impossible to compare. And comparative perspective in anthropology is because look at us. I mean, no two people on the surface of this planet are alike. We are not similar biologically, we are not similar culturally, we are not similar behaviorally, and we are also not similar socially. And because there is so much of diversity in the human cultures, biologies, and societies, we need to understand the reasons why we display this diversity. And that's the reason we adopted the comparative method. And historical method, that is another important anthropological approach, where any phenomenon we study, it could be a contemporary problem the humanity is facing, but we look into those problems from a historical perspective. Every aspect of human behavior is studied by us by going into the origins. And when we study biology, we go into origins. That's why we study human evolution. When we are studying culture, we look at the origins. That's the reason why we go into cultural evolution. And when we are looking at the social institutions and behaviors, again, we go into the origins of those phenomena. And functionalism is an approach where we don't just describe things. Description is something that is a very mundane activity, which is not very intellectually stimulating. In anthropology, we have embraced something called as the functional approach, where we try to understand what is the logic and the reasoning behind why humans are behaving the way they do. We answer the question why and what is the functional significance and the relevance of all these social and cultural arrangements we have. This is what makes anthropology a unique discipline amongst the family of social sciences, life sciences, and also the humanities. And that is one of the reasons why there are hundreds of specializations in anthropology. Very broadly, there are only 4 branches. Anthropology is in fact called a 4-field method. We have something called the socio-cultural anthropology, which is looking at the social and cultural behavior. We have something called as the physical anthropology. This is where we are looking at the biological aspects of man, but we don't strictly study the biology the way biologists do. We have something called a biocultural approach or a biocultural paradigm to study everything to do with us. We need to understand what are the reasons behind why our evolution, biologically has happened in a particular way and not the other. We share more than 98% of our DNA with our closest relative called a chimpanzee. But despite the fact that we are so genetically similar, look at where the chimpanzees are and where we are. We are virtually occupying every ecosystem on the surface of this planet. We live in the tundra, we live in the arid areas, we live in high altitude zones, we live in concrete jungles that we have created called the cities. We live in the rainforest, subtropics and semi-tropical areas, coastal areas. And this has to do not just with our biology. Biologically, we are probably very vulnerable. Biologically, we don't have the capacity to adapt to so many different ecosystems. There must be something more than biology working in us. And physical anthropology is all about, how biology, society, cultural behavior interact with each other. And that's why it's called a biocultural study of man. Without this brain, without these hands, without this precision, this power grip and precision grip, and the opposability and prehensility, I don't think we could have invented this material world around us. We couldn't have become the tool makers and the tool users. And it's not just the big brain, it's not the brain per se that makes us intelligent, but the brain to body size ratio, the cerebral cortex, the complex thinking process we have is not possible without, the biological foundation. So we link the biology with culture, culture with society. And this is what I mean when I say that anthropology is a holistic science. And then we have something called linguistic anthropology, which was once upon a time a part of our socio-cultural anthropology. But this ended up becoming a separate specialization because it has its own tools and techniques. Linguistic anthropology is all about how humans communicate. We use language and we use speech, we use script, we use many non-verbal means of communication. And that also plays a very important role in the way we perceive culture and the way we organize ourselves in the society. And that's why that emerged as a separate branch. And then, of course, because we study evolution, we also have archaeology. Not many people know that archaeology is one of the 4 pillars of anthropological studies. The full name is actually archaeological anthropology, but this is where we study and reconstruct the extinct cultures. History begins when script was invented, and history is only about 5,000 years old. But the human culture has been existing for millions of years before that. So somebody has to actually reconstruct even those prehistoric cultures, the cultures that existed before the script came into being. And archaeologists are the people who help us understand, the prehistoric cultures. If archaeology is reconstructing the evolution of culture, in physical anthropology, we reconstruct the evolution of our biology. And this biology and culture together were evolving. They were co-evolving. And as a consequence, today, in about 50,000 years, we ended up becoming the most dominant and sophisticated species on Earth. I don't think any other species has reached, the levels of sophistication that the humans have reached. So that is anthropology in a very brief nutshell for you. And this is, let me take you through what you have in your syllabus. Like any other optional subject, your paper is divided into 2, paper 1 and paper 2. For our academic convenience, we call the paper 1, you have socio-cultural anthropology, physical anthropology, and you have a little of archaeology, 1 chapter, and a little of linguistic anthropology, 1 chapter. And paper 2 is Indian anthropology. So whatever concepts and methods that we learn in paper 1, we try to look at the Indian culture and the Indian society and Indian cultural diversity from an anthropological lens in paper 2. That's why we call paper 2 Indian anthropology. I don't know how many of you have gone through the syllabus, but I will give you a very concise view of the syllabus. As I told you, paper 1, we can divide it into socio-cultural and physical. And in socio-cultural anthropology, we start off with the basics, right from the spelling and the definition of anthropology, the branches of anthropology. And in fact, whatever I spoke to you about anthropology till now, we will be elaborating on it. And your entire syllabus is designed in such a way that no prior academic knowledge is assumed from you. We start from the basics, whether it is in sociocultural anthropology or in physical anthropology. We start with the alphabets, technically speaking, of anthropology. And then we go into the basic concepts of society and culture. This is extremely important for your general studies also, because most of us must have left our basics in society and culture after 10th. And one of the reasons why you probably must be reading NCERT is to get some idea about the basics of social sciences. But you don't require to do that if you happen to be a student of anthropology, because we do it. We study about what is society, what is culture, what do we mean by man is a social animal, and what are the various aspects of the human society and the human culture. Culture, civilization, what is the difference between them? What are the different aspects and dimensions of culture? What are the functions of culture, functions of society? These are the basic concepts that we learn in this chapter. As I told you, you have one chapter, linguistic anthropology. We study human communication like language and speech, and we also study nonverbal communication. This topic is extremely, I find it extremely useful both in personal and professional lives, and I'm sure you will find it too, is because you're not judging me currently by just what I'm speaking. You're probably also judging what I'm saying and interpreting what I'm saying based on the way I say it, my posture, the way I stand, the way I am delivering the lecture. So a lot is going on between the people who are communicating. Most of that is invisible to the naked eye and something that we can only perceive but we don't see. So human communication is very complicated. We have something called symbolic communication. I'm making sounds. These sounds are converted into words, words into sentences, sentences into language, and your brain is interpreting whatever I'm saying in real time. You're comprehending what I'm saying in real time. I hope so, but that's the intention of this lecture. But that's a capability that is unparalleled. There are some organisms that may communicate, but they come very close to human communication, but they are not as sophisticated as us. And then we look into all the social institutions. Social institutions are organized ways of doing things. So we study everything to do with our marriage, our family, kinship. Kinship means relationships. We are again the only species that classify the relatives into blood relatives and our final relatives, the ones who are related to us by marriage. We study our economic organizations, that means production, distribution, and consumption, and the various economic aspects of human social behavior. And we also study the political organizations, power, authority, legitimacy, types of power. State is something you study in Indian polity and political science. But state is relatively a recent innovation. But there are different arrangements that exist in the world where people live in non-state conditions and they have their own culturally defined arrangements to ensure that there is a social order, social control, and that's how they keep the societies intact. So this is what we study in the political organization. And we also look at another important symbolic behavior, religion and magic. The concept of religion, supernatural world. This is, again, something which is very uniquely human. And we are not just content with what is there in this everyday world, but as humans, we also started exploring what is probably there in the nether world, a world that is called supernatural world or a sacred world. And in this sacred world are our gods, goddesses, deities, and God is again not universal. There could be the forces, supernatural forces, powers, and they could be our ancestors who are dead, who probably will be watching over us, and every culture in this world has some systems of religion or not, or magic. And magic is not the magic as you understand it on television, but magic is a form of religion, actually, which involves manipulating the supernatural powers and making them work towards our goals. So these are the most important institutions. They are called social institutions in social sciences. And so an institution is not a place. An institution in social sciences is an organized way of doing things. And take, for example, animals. We have many needs like animals, but we don't satisfy those needs the way the animals do. We have also the needs like biological needs like sex, hunger, thirst. We also have many other needs which are above biology. And we try to satisfy these needs in a very organized way, a standardized way, to ensure that all the humanity, within the society at least, is behaving in a particular way. And that standardized behavior of doing things and satisfying our wants is done or achieved through what we call as social institutions. Our family, marriage, kinship, economy, polity, religion, magic are all social institutions. And we do a comparative study of these institutions. And because these institutions, again, vary from culture to culture. Take, for example, India alone has many different forms of marriage. In one culture, you can marry your first cousin. In another culture, it is considered a taboo. In one culture, you can marry multiple times. In another culture, you cannot. In some cultures, widows are allowed to remarry. In other cultures, they are not allowed. In some cultures, the divorces are easy. In some other cultures, the concept of divorce might not even exist. So this is the kind of the variations you see everywhere, everywhere. Economy, production systems are different. Political systems are different. So these are universal but unique. They exist in all cultures of the world, but at the same time, they are susceptible to so much of diversity. And we as anthropologists use our comparative method and functional method to understand these institutions. And then we also, one chapter we have where we study how the concept of culture has evolved in anthropology. The approaches to the study of culture. Different anthropologists have looked at culture from different perspectives. And then demography. I'm sure you know what is demography. You have that as a part of your general studies. It's a study of populations. The word dem means a population, and demography, like geography, is a description and analysis of the world. Demography is the study of the structure, evolution, or growth and changes in a population. And anthropological demography is we look at the demographical aspects, fertility, mortality, migration, how the population increases, what are the implications of population, is something we study both in paper 1 as well as paper 2. We have Indian demography in paper 1, paper 2, and we study the concepts and methods of demography in paper 1. So Indian population, today India is the world's largest or most populated country. Yesterday in the GS paper, there was a question on something called as demographic winter. Did you see the paper yesterday? There are close to about 10 to 11 questions which have a bearing in your anthropology, but close to 115 marks. Same is the case with last year. I'll show you some of the questions anyway. Ecological anthropology is about, how humans adapt. As I just told you, we occupy every ecosystem in the world, and ecological anthropology is all about how we are using our biology and our culture to adapt to the various types of environments and ecosystems in the world. And epidemiological anthropology, just small chapters these are, is a part of a parent discipline. In fact, my parent discipline called medical anthropology. And epidemiology, what is epidemiology? This word became, I think, more popular because of the recent COVID pandemic. The concept of epidemic, endemic, pandemic, many of the people, novices, got to use and came to know about these terms because of the COVID pandemic. Epidemiology is all about the cause, the distribution of the diseases. And distribution of the diseases, the concept of health, illness, are all some things again that depend on our social and cultural behavior too. We fought COVID for a very long time before the vaccines came by only making some personal and social adjustments, right? Social distancing, they call it, despite the fact that it's a wrong word. Social distancing, personal and social hygiene. We were locked out from the rest of the people of the world for some time, or people of our own neighborhood for some time. So epidemiological anthropology is all about, how people conceive health, disease, and illness. What is a disease for us need not be a disease for somebody else. If you consider a particular symptom to be dangerous and you rush to a doctor, in another culture probably, when that symptom is not there, they go to their doctors. Every culture has its own system of medicine called ethnomedicine. And the way health is defined is again culture specific. And epidemiology and medical anthropology is all about looking at the concept of health, disease, and illness from an anthropological perspective. And then we also have our own methods of collecting data. We have something called as observation. We conduct interviews. We have our own systems of sampling. We have something called the case study method, a genealogical method. So all those ways in which we do research, the methods, the tools through which we can collect data, how do we analyze data, how do we interpret data, and how do we present the data, is all about research methodology, which we study. And as I told you, we have prehistoric archaeology. In paper 1, we study the basic concepts and the archaeological periods of the world. And this again has a parallel in paper 2, where we study Indian prehistory. You have that in your history, I think, right? Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic. Then you have the Chalcolithic age, the Iron Age, Bronze Age, Indus Valley. Absolutely same thing here. Well, we don't study the Vedic and the later Vedic ages in anthropology, because from there, your historical documents come. Archaeology only looks at those kind of cultures which are either prehistoric, that means before the script came, or proto-historic, something which is very close to the invention of the script. There may be a script which is yet to be fully deciphered. Like our Harappan civilization is a proto-historic period, technically speaking. So this is what constitutes socio-cultural, and this is the physical anthropology part. And this is what I was telling you about. Anthropology syllabus is in such a way that it assumes that you do not know ABC about anthropology or social sciences or even biology. So your physical anthropology, we again start off with our 7th, 5th, 6th, 7th standard topics. What is a cell? Difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. Chromosomes, DNA, what is the DNA, functions of the DNA, the structure, the replications, what are the genes, what are the proteins. I mean, these topics are extremely important for your science and technology, which you have in your general studies, and also your prelims, and you have, we study again the same old Lamarck and Darwin. This is nothing to do with human evolution per se, but these are called the theories of organic evolution, how life has evolved on Earth and what factors have contributed to the evolution of the species. Because we need to know the basics of biology before we go into the human species. So we learn our basics of biology here, and then we start applying these basic concepts in the context of anthropology. So this is where we study primates. Who are the primates? Primates are monkeys, apes, and humans. This is the order in the class Mammalia. Man is a primate, so we compare ourselves with our closest relatives, the monkeys and apes, and we study human evolution. You have 6, 7 fossil evidences. We start our journey approximately around 3.5 to 4 million years ago, till the evolution of the modern man that has happened about 40, 50,000 years ago. And whatever the basics of genetics we study, obviously we are only interested in our species. So we have human genetics, a topic which is extremely important for your general studies, especially science and technology. This is where we look at the basic concepts of human genetics, the various genetic disorders, chromosomal aberrations like Down syndrome and others. And most importantly, DNA technology, biotechnology, and the various methods that we have developed and which we are using today in order to benefit us in many domains. DNA technologies, like rDNA technology, for example, is something we use in medicine, in the manufacturing of vaccines, synthetic production of hormones. We also use it in agriculture, and also making some transgenic organisms that help us in economy and production systems. And these areas overlap with your science and tech. And we also look at the variations in man, the human diversity, the various, different races of the world. In fact, two children who are born to the same parents are not alike, biologically speaking. There must be a reason why we are so different from each other. That's another aspect that makes us very unique in the animal kingdom. And this kind of a diversity is literally unparalleled in the animal kingdom. And we try to understand the reasons behind the population variations and the biological logic behind why the races have evolved, and what is the functional implication and the adaptive advantages the races may have in different parts of the world. And we also study our own growth and development, right from the time the sperm fertilizes the egg, the long process of growth and development begin. And that zygote, ultimately develops into fetus, and then the mother gives birth to the child, and then starts a long process of postnatal life after birth, infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and then the post-reproductive phase of life, which is called as senescence. Very important. Like, for example, today the world is moving towards, yesterday's question in GS about demographic winter is all about, an increase in the proportion of elderly people in the population. We talk about the post reproductive life. Elderly people by themselves do not contribute anything in terms of productivity, but they become an integral part of your society. The society, social institutions, and even the state has to gear up to take care of the needs of the elderly people and let them lead a very dignified life. So the problems of the elderly, and what kind of demographic implications that this will have on the nations is something that we study as a part of our syllabus. And then, of course, anthropology is not a theoretical science alone. Anthropology is involved in sports. Anthropology is involved in manufacturing and designing of defense equipment. Anthropologists are also involved in forensics. Forensics is the court of law. In Latin, it's derived from a word forensis. And we also help the courts of law in many situations, like identifying or personal identification, facial reconstruction, and also trying to understand the nature of, especially if there are flight crashes or huge fire accidents, you will come across the bodies which cannot be recognized anymore. So that's where anthropologists are normally called, to use the various methods that they have developed in order to identify those unfortunate bodies. And there are many more things that we do in forensics. So applied physical anthropology is all about applying anthropology for real life and real world problems. And that includes sports and defense and many other domains. So that is paper one in a nutshell for you. And paper two, in fact, anthropology has the shortest paper two amongst all the optionals. One of the reasons anthropology is considered to be very user friendly is because of the fact that, number one, paper two syllabus is much lesser compared to the paper two syllabi of other subjects. And number two is that it heavily overlaps with your general studies. And these are the topics you have. I told you archaeology anyway is an overlap area. And then we study the demographic aspects of India, the population growth structure. India has its own racial and linguistic groups. And we also study certain civilizational aspects of Indian society, like Varna, the concept of karma, the jati, which is caste system, concept of rina. These are all the ancient Indian philosophical foundations. These are the civilizational concepts, which are part and parcel of the Indian ethos even today. And probably take, for example, the concept of karma is one of the philosophical aspects of India that many other nations, especially the Western world, has adopted from us. And the concept of ashramas, and also caste system. We study the caste system threadbare, right from the evolution of the caste, the various conceptions that exist about caste system, how various scholars looked at the caste system. And we look at the economics of caste, politics. Caste and politics today is by far one of the most influential aspects, right? Whenever elections happen, you see the caste calculations and caste affiliations play an important role. So we not only look at the relevance of caste in traditional India, but we also look at the contemporary aspects of the caste system as it exists in 21st century India, and also the various dimensions like economic dimension. Traditional India used to have something called the Jajmaniya system, and we look at that. And also at the same time, we look at how caste is playing a role in modern economic institutions too. And we also have something called as rural anthropology. This is where we study everything about the Indian villages. India, there is a sobriquet. India has a title, which is Gramavasini Bharati. The real India lives in its villages. And rural anthropology as a specialization in India developed especially after India became independent. And when we launched one of the world's largest community development programs, the Agricultural Reconstruction and Community Development Programs. Planning Commission began during that time. And villages play an important role in Indian psyche, in Indian society, in Indian economics, in Indian politics. And we study all the dimensions of Indian villages, and also agrarian relations, how they existed during the colonial, the pre-colonial, the colonial, and post-independent India. The zamindari, the jagirdari, the mahalwari, the rayatwari systems, how the agrarian relations, the class structure essentially existed during the ancient times, the Mughal times, and subsequently in independent India. And we also study the impact of modernization, globalization on Indian villages, Indian economy. In paper one, when we look at economic anthropology, the economic institutions, we study the impact of globalization on indigenous people of the world. Recently we celebrated the World Indigenous Day. In India, it's called the Tribal Day. And the reason why we celebrate the Indigenous Day is because of the United Nations Declaration on the rights of the indigenous people across the world. We call them Adivasis in India, the tribal populations. And globally, they are at the forefront of the forces of modernization, commercialization, globalization. And they are getting exterminated in many parts of the world because of the forward march of, the modern capitalism. And we study the impact of globalization in paper one. We also study the impact of globalization on Indian villages in paper two. In fact, anthropology has its own model of globalization, which was given by an Indian-born anthropologist who is in University of Chicago. His name is Arjun Appadurai. And that his concept of globalization today is something that has been that is used as a paradigm or as a template by many nations. Globalization is not foreign direct investment. Globalization is not liberalization and privatization. Globalization has social, cultural, psychological dimensions. Globalization also involves a growing interconnectedness between the people. An event that is taking place millions of miles away, or thousands of miles away, can have a repercussion somewhere in India. A farmer in an Indian village is affected by the events that are probably taking place in Davos, when all the corporate majors and the multinational companies come and meet. So globalization is a growing interconnectedness for us. Social sciences looks at globalization from a completely different perspective as compared to economics. I mean, economics is also a social science, but for us, it's a holistic phenomenon. We don't confine it only to economics. And in fact, this year also there was a question on globalization in GS. Last year there was a question again on globalization in general studies. And we also look at social change in India. I'm sure you will also study them. Most of them are part of your GS: Sanskritization, Westernization. There are many more. I mean, Sanskritization and Westernization are concepts given in anthropology. Professor M.N. Srinivas. I'm a student of Mr. Srinivas's student. And Mysore Narsimhacharya Srinivas. He studied the Indian caste system and Indian villages, erstwhile Mysore district, today Coorg. And he came out with these brilliant concepts of Sanskritization, Westernization. And then we have something called modernization, which also you will study in GS, I'm sure. Then there's something called great and little traditions, which you will learn when you come to paper two. And we also study Panchayat Raj. And the syllabus is pretty specific here. The social change that Panchayat Raj institutions are likely to bring about. The social impact of Panchayat Raj. And also the role of media. In fact, we have something called media anthropology also. And role of media here, it includes the conventional media like press, electronic media, and also the new media, social media, internet, and what kind of an impact it will have on the people, on our culture, on our society. These are topics that are pretty generic. They can also be the part and parcel of your general essays tomorrow. And I think last year there was a question in GS that mobile phones are replacing the cuddles of the mother, or something like that. That's one of the impacts that we talk about in terms of technology, globalization, industrialization, media, and the penetration of information technology into our private lives. Media is a double-edged sword. It can divide people, but it also has an enormous potential to bring change in our lives. Thanks to media, there were so many what shall I say, shortcomings in our politics, in our governance systems that got highlighted. Media is also empowering the people in the remotest corners of the world. And thanks to the emergence of media, that the indigenous people in India and across the world are letting their voices heard, to media is providing a platform for the indigenous voices to be heard for the first time. So transparency, propriety, social, what shall I say, impact that media has is enormous. And we will be looking at it from our own perspectives. Anthropology has been studying media since the 19th century, especially in the Western countries and in African nations. And today, the role of anthropology in analyzing the role of media has been realized to be, what shall I say, indispensable. And then we also look at all the vulnerable sections, or the so-called vulnerable sections, minorities. We have the Constitution of India recognizes two types of minorities, religious and linguistic. What are their social, economic, political problems? Religious minorities, linguistic minorities, what are the constitutional protections that are there? Are they working? What are the issues? What are the problems? We have many committees. We have Sachar Committee for the Muslims. We have Ranganath Mishra, Justice Ranganath Mishra Committee, and various other commissions. They have been recommending us so many things. We will start looking at whether these recommendations are working, what are the loopholes, and what are the challenges. This is exactly what you have in GS. And we study the tribal people, again, threadbare, right from the origin of the concept of tribe to the definition of the tribe. What is the difference between a tribe and a scheduled tribe, all the way to, understanding the socio-cultural, politico-economic characteristics of the tribal people and all their problems. You have a huge list, unfortunately, of the problems the tribal people suffer from. Land alienation, displacement without rehabilitation, literacy rates, undernourishment or malnutrition, health problems. And anthropologists have been the social scientists who started looking at the tribes the very first time before any other social sciences, because we were interested in understanding the tribes across the world, because the tribes represent our own origins. The present day tribal people are actually the models of how our ancestors lived once upon a time. While studying the tribal people, we can understand how the social institutions probably have originated, how they have evolved, and how they function. And as a consequence of our familiarity with the indigenous people, we started also looking into the problems and the challenges. And indigenous people in India and across the world, started facing many challenges because they were suddenly exposed to the non-tribal populations. The tribal isolations are broken down, and that abrupt juxtaposition of the tribal and the non-tribal cultures has resulted in a series of problems. And anthropologists look at the tribal problems in great detail. We have also a special category of tribes, right? PVTG. Recently, we launched the Prime Minister's PVTG mission. These are called the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. And these are the people who are, I think, the most backward of the backward. And these are the people who require a greater care, is because most of their cultures are still at a Paleolithic hunting gathering stage. Literacy rates are very low, single digit actually in some cases. Malnutrition, their populations are gradually reducing. And their vulnerabilities stem from multiple factors, and we look at them also. And then we look at all the backward classes apart from the tribes, and they are, of course, the scheduled castes. Caste system is something we study so exhaustively It has been one of the most important areas of research in anthropology starting 1950s. In fact, right from the time of Megasthenes and the other travelers who came to India. But more scientific rigor was applied to the understanding of the caste system and its multidimensionality, especially after 1950s in India, when we started looking at the villages. And we study caste system in all its dimensions. And one of the anthropological theories that we look at about the caste system is one given by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. I do not know whether you know that he is not just a renowned lawyer, but he was also an anthropologist. He presented a paper on caste system in Columbia University, which was published in an anthropological and an archaeological journal called the Indian Antiquary later on. And he was awarded a PhD for that. And his conceptions about the caste. And then one of the most uh, obvious expressions of the caste system is the hierarchy, isn't it? And a whole group of people have been classified as the so-called untouchables. And these so-called untouchables subsequently were recognized under the Simon Commission. They made a list. A list is also called a schedule or a schedule. And all those castes that appear in that list are called the scheduled castes. And independent India, after we became independent, continued with the same terminology. And we look at scheduled castes, their origins, the problems, the challenges, the constitutional safeguards. There's many contemporary problems also. Recently, I'm sure you must have read through, or you must have encountered these debates going on about subcategorization of scheduled castes. You know, there was also an observation regarding creamy layer in the scheduled caste. Why? Why are these debates actually existing? If you want to appreciate why they are happening in contemporary India, you need to look at everything from the origin. Don't forget, anthropology is a historical, holistic, comparative, and a functional study. So, by virtue of the historicism, we go into every topic we study from the origins. And then we also have OBCs, other backward classes. In fact, many people don't know what the C stands for. Is it other backward class or another backward caste? And that's a confusion. And today there is a political discourse going on about caste census. You know, people are talking about mandalization of politics. So we study everything, right from the origin of the concept of OBC. See, as far the constitution is concerned, backward classes are SCs, STs, and people who are socially and economically backward, right? So we know the clear definition of an SC, the scheduled caste. We have a clear definition of an ST, the scheduled tribe. But any other person or any other group of people who are neither the SC nor the ST are the other backward classes. That means there is a residual category of backward classes who are neither SC nor ST, and they are classified as OBCs. And we have appointed multiple commissions to identify who those OBCs are. We had the first backward class commission under Kaka Saheb Kalekar, and later on we had the second backward class under the chairmanship of Sri Mandal. And that Mandal Commission report is what has been implemented. The 27% reservation, it went to the Supreme Court, the Indira Shani and Union of India case, the creamy layer came and it got implemented. And after that, you see the emergence of caste politics reaching its zenith in India. So caste has become an important political aspect. Caste is leveraged in order to politically, what shall I say, mobilize people and vote banks. So we are going to look at the political aspects, the constitutionality, the legal dimensions, and also the origin and the evolution of the concept of the OBCs in India. And that is the depth to which we look at these topics. And then we also have somebody called denotified communities. We also recently had launched another mission to take care of them, and we'll look at them. They, in fact, some of the denotified communities are in ST, some of them are in SC list, and some of them are in OBC list. The Britishers, classified some tribes as criminal tribes, and we repealed that act. It's called the Criminal Tribes Act, and people were victimized, and people were also, there's a lot of stigma that is attached to the members who were once upon a time classified as so-called criminal tribes. And Jai Bhim was a movie that was made on one particular group who hitherto belonged to the criminal tribes, and we look at them, their problems, the challenges, and all the constitutional safeguards, the government programs, and we will be critically evaluating all the programs that are there. We will be looking at whether the constitutional safeguards are being implemented, what are the challenges, roadblocks, bottlenecks, political problems, economic, social, cultural, psychological problems of all these people as a part of paper 2. And finally, we also look at the various aspects of ethnicity. India is a country or a society with multiculturalism, cultural plurality. But we have our own set of problems because of diversity. It has created problems of regionalism, communalism. We have ethnic political movements. Tribes in some places are demanding greater autonomy. In some cases, historically, we had secession movements. Insurgencies were also the part of India's history, even in the recent past. And we will be looking at communalism, secularism. I think this year there was a question on secularism in GS. And exactly the way we actually study, we compare India's brand of secularism with how secularism is practiced in the Western countries. And it's very different, actually. The way we interpret, our constitution interprets secularism is very different from the way, let us say, the Western countries interpret it. And we ask these questions: is India really a secular state? Even if it's a secular state, are we a secular society? Are we secular in our mindsets? Are we secular at an individual level? And these are the kind of questions we ask. And we try to analyze secularism from a larger macroscopic as well as a microscopic perspective. Communalism is not just a Hindu-Muslim problem. Communalism is not just Hindu-Sikh problem. There is caste communalism in India. There is regional communalism in India. There is class system in India. And communalism can come in any form, in multiple dimensions. And we look at them. So this is paper 2. In fact, if I don't put any heading here, this looks like your general studies syllabus. And whatever the concepts we learned in paper 1 is something that we try to look at the Indian society and culture from. This is the anthropological lens or an anthropological perspective that we use to look at all these problems. So that's the syllabus that you have. And let me also give you an idea about how the question paper is. In fact, I hope this is visible to the online students. There's no difference in the question paper patterns for the all the optionals. Almost all the optionals have the same pattern. Optional itself is for 500 marks. Each paper is for 250. Both the papers are conducted on the same day. Morning you will have paper 1 and evening you have paper 2. And this is how every paper is set. The paper is for 250 marks. And you have 2 sections, section A and section B. And each section again will have 4 questions each, right? And the question number 1, that is the first question in section A, and question number 5, which is the first question in section B, are compulsory. Much like your GS, you have 10 markers, which are called the short notes. And these are the questions that have a word limit of about 150 words. And these are the questions which each of them will carry 10 marks. In fact, every question carries 50 marks. But question number 1 and 5, which are the short notes, they are divided into 5 questions, A, B, C, D, and E, and each one carries 10 marks. You have to answer all of them. Okay? And then you have 3 more questions in section A and 3 more questions in section B. You can write any 3 questions out of these 6. But there is a catch. You have to pick up at least 1 question from each section. So assume you're picking up question 3 from section A, you can pick up 7 and 8 from B. Or if you're picking up 4 or 2, you can pick up 2 questions from section A, you can pick up 1 from section B. So in all, how many questions are you attempting? 2 compulsory questions, that is 2, and 3 other questions, 3. And each question carries how many marks? 50. Okay. Now, let me zoom into this. Section B is a mirror image of section A. So let's look at one section that should explain everything. So the short notes, the compulsory questions, there will be 5, each carrying 10 marks, compulsory, no choice. That's number 1. And then you have the other questions. The other questions, once upon a time, before 2015, each question carried 50 marks or 60 marks and 1 question. Unlimited additional sheets you used to get. But today, I think there is a paradigm shift in civil services exam, especially for the optional subjects after 2015. So now not only the pattern has changed, the syllabus, of course, has changed many times. And I literally grew up with anthropology as an optional since 93. And I've seen the syllabus changing more than 3, 4 times or 5 times. But one thing that has happened in 2015 is that you are going to get a pre-printed booklet, right? And that booklet it won't have the answers printed, it only has the questions printed, right? And each question, depending on the number of marks that are allocated, you will have a predefined space. Okay? So for the 10 marker, you will have 2 sheets, 2 pages, 2 sides, right? Then you have a 15 marker. So this is a 10 marker. For a 15 marker, you have 3 sides, and for a 20 marker, you have 4 sides. So you have a defined space within which you are supposed to write your answers. There is no word limit for the other questions. There's only a word limit is mentioned only for the first one, and it need not be precise, around 150 words. Plus or minus 15% is okay. You can't be too short, right? That means you're not really writing a good answer. You can't be too long also. You're still not writing a good answer. And in fact, writing a short note, according to me, is more difficult than actually attempting an essay, because you need to know what not to write. And that comes only with absolute clarity of thought or conceptual clarity. And then you have the other questions. As I told you, you see, each of these questions is divided into 3 sub-questions, A, B, C. And this is the pattern. One of them will be a 20 marker. The other 2 will be 15 markers each. This can vary, okay? I have seen 20, 20, 10 also in paper 2. But that's not happening since last 3, 4 years. So this is the pattern in paper 1 and paper 2, both the sections. And each of them, 20, 15, 15, this, as I told you, is, you can extrapolate it. If 10 marks is 150 words, you can extrapolate the number of words you can write for each of them. Space limit is the only thing you have. And this, you have 4 sheets, 4 sides. This you have 3, this you have 3. So you see, if you pick up, let us say, Q2, you have no choice but to write all the 3. There is no internal choice. There is only an external choice. In a sense, you can pick up whatever questions you want with at least one question from each section, right? But once you pick up a question, you need to write all the 3. And moreover, these 3 questions that come as a part of, let us say, Q3, QA, B, C, need not be from the same chapter. That means you need to virtually study everything. The concept of the choice, is not there much in any of the subjects anymore. Whole GS is compulsory, right? There's no choice in GS papers, right? So here, at least you do have a choice, but the choice is restricted to basically a larger generic level, but not specifically within the question. Okay? So 250 marks for paper 1, 250 for paper 2, that's 500 marks. Did you get it? All of you? So that's the pattern of the paper. And now coming to the quintessential question, why choose anthropology? Well, one of the reasons why anthropology is a very popular subject is because it's a very objective discipline. You're not objective in a sense that, most of the areas are not susceptible to your individual interpretations. Much of anthropology is theoretical, and much of anthropological approach is empirical and scientific. So objectivity in the subject itself is the greatest advantage, is because, you can straight away start writing your answer without much of dilly-dallying, and you won't have any conflict of ideas when you have to present an answer, is because you can go with a pre-prepared template. That is one of the reasons why it has been popular. I'm giving you the reasons why it has been popular, right? Number 2, there is no prior academic advantage when it comes to anthropology. There are very few universities that offer anthropology at a graduate level, and very few that offer it a postgraduate level. When I was in MA Anthropology, we were 13 people in a class, all India entrance in a central university. And very few people choose anthropology as an academic subject, is because like medicine, there's a very long academic training that is involved. A lot of field work is involved. And people specialize and fly away. So you're not competing with somebody who has a master's or a PhD degree in anthropology in this exam. Unlike other optionals where you will have people who have graduated or post-graduated in that subject and probably have had a better access to books and whatnot, and had better exposure to the subject before they actually decided to take this exam. So there is a level playing field. In fact, most 90-95% of the students I have dealt over the last 3 decades came from engineering background, commerce background, and people who even had social science background but in a different subject. And of course, life sciences, very few people. But there's a level playing field. And also at the same time, it's very easy to understand. We are studying ourselves, our marriage, our family, our kinship, our religion. I mean, relating to anthropological concepts is not difficult. In fact, I keep telling this to all my students that 15 days down the sessions, you will start seeing anthropology everywhere in your life. Sorry. The way you read your morning newspaper will not be the same again. The way you, sorry, give me a second. You see anthropology in your religion, anthropology everywhere. Sorry. We are literally touching, analyzing, and trying to appreciate why we live the way we do. It's about us, our lives, our social and private lives that we delve into. And that's the reason why relating to the concepts and methods of anthropology and the theory of anthropology is not something which is academically and intellectually very challenging. And then the syllabus is well defined. It looks very long in the notification is because every topic, subtopic, subtopic is very clearly defined as compared to some other subjects where just about 2 or 3 paragraphs the whole thing is summarized, but there's so much more that you are expected to study than what is actually mentioned in the syllabus. And that's another thing. Sorry, predictability. You're sure about what kind of questions that will be asked. You're sure about how much you have prepared, how much more to prepare. And also, very importantly, there is a perfect balance of static and dynamic areas. Anthropology will have dynamic areas because we are studying ourselves. Suddenly, if the Supreme Court is discussing about subcategorization of scheduled castes, again, we need to go back and incorporate that dimension into our discussions. If the Supreme Court or if the political discourse is about creamy layer or OBCs or some caste or census and all, we need to bring them into our analysis. So as long as we are evolving, our world is evolving, new challenges appear, anthropological scope also will keep increasing. But that's integrated into our syllabus, thankfully. So there is a balance between static and dynamic. Dynamic areas are also the examples you give, not the topics per se. The static component of the topic remains the same, obviously. Whereas the dynamic component of the topics is the contemporary examples or the case studies that we need to give. That's what makes your answers novel. The examiner will know, okay, this student or this aspirant is able to relate a concept to a contemporary issue. That's what is your GS. That's what is your general essay. In fact, that's how your personality test is going to be. And what is something that you deliberately have to learn in other subjects, in anthropology, it's a part and parcel of our curriculum. That's how we have to study. We need to relate the present with the past. We need to relate what's happening in the West with the East. And we need to relate what is happening in the present day societies. We need to link it to what could have happened in historical societies. So that is the method of anthropology. And then anthropology also at the same time is very easy in terms of answer writing. Verbose answers, a strict no. In certain areas, yes. But in most of the other topics, in the majority of the topics, in fact, what I prefer, I keep telling the students is to write in neat points, bullets. That also gives you an advantage. The way I teach, the way you learn, the way you prepare your notes, and the way you write an answer, there's a consistency in everything. In that way, you will have a better idea about the scope of the topic. You will also have a good memory as to what all topics to cover. Your revision becomes easy. Your delivering it in the form of an answer becomes easy. So that's another advantage that students have. And of course, scoring rate 12 to 15%. Since 2001, if I take about 10 to 15% is the success rate of anthropology. That's pretty high. And scores anywhere about 300. Most of the toppers, in fact, one of my students had the highest marks, 325. She was with me 5-6 years ago. She succeeded recently. And anthropology is a good subject. If you are honest with it, it will deliver for you. the reason anthropology became popular in civil services is because of its inherent advantages, and very importantly, its overlap with GS. You just saw the syllabus. No, these are not hawa mein baatein. Everything, right? You have, take for example, I'm just trying to read out some points from your GS syllabus: Indian society, social welfare, empowerment, SC, ST, OBC, minority, regionalism, communalism, secularism, national integration, globalization. And we study all of them, but you know how we study? We study from a historical, holistic, comparative, and functional perspective. We study everything you study in GS. See, you can, if you bring GS into anthropology, you may not score well. But if you take anthropology to your GS, you will have that cutting edge. You will have that value addition to your GS answers. So this is the advantage that you have. And not only the topics in Indian society and all, internal security. And yeah, I'll tell you, internal security, ethnicity, ethnic conflicts. You know, we talk about the various tribal revolts, the demand for autonomy, insurgency. You know, all these are the topics that we study in anthropology. Then government programs, all the various commissions, constitutional safeguards. We again analyze them not perfunctionally. We are not analyzing them superficially, but we are going to assess the relevance of these safeguards vis-a-vis, you know, our knowledge about those problems and our intense historical knowledge about the evolution of those problems. And the wisdom of the constitutional makers is extraordinary. They not only thought of the past, but they also have had the vision to think about the future. And we will see how beautifully they are tailor-made to accommodate the varied interests and challenges India has. And then also, anthropology provides you with that critical thinking that is required for you to write good answers in GS, general essay. There's a kind of critical thinking, a value addition you need to bring in. Everyone is writing the same answer, or everyone is attempting the same question in GS. GS is compulsory. And if everyone is, writing the same answer, where is the cutting edge? Where is that edge that you have vis-a-vis others? Bring in your anthropological perspectives. Bring in your anthropological concepts. And when you lace them, in your GS, it will return wonders. Even a mundane dish may look very interesting and appealing when you are garnishing it and you're decorating it. And when you bring in the anthropological perspectives into your essay and your general studies, it's really going to be very helpful. And let me also tell you some misconceptions most of the people have. People think the syllabus is very small. No. This is an examination which is considered as one of the toughest in the world. This is one of the most beautiful examinations that has been designed. You're competing with the best brains in the country. You're supposed to prove that you're one of them. And this exam is so wonderfully designed that, nothing can be called as one subject less or small, one is big or large. There's a level playing field as far as the quantum of work one has to put in or effort that has to go into every optional. Yes, it's a different matter if a subject has an overlap with GS or not, or whether it requires a lot of subjective thinking and reasoning, or whether the answers have to be written in verbose way or not. Those are unique to every subject. But as far as the syllabus or the quantity, the quantum of the syllabus is concerned, everything, all the options are same. Yes, paper 2, as I told you, in anthropology is relatively very less compared to the paper 2s of other subjects. And even paper 1, more organized, objective. Answers can be written in point forms, I told you. You can embellish your answers with illustrations, flow charts, further reducing the amount of effort that goes into writing. And that saves time. That saves the most important precious resource in this exam is time. And that's the first misconception. No subject is inherently small or inherently large. I don't even know whether small and large are the correct units to talk about the quantum of a subject. A subject is not weighed by the number of lines the syllabus runs into in the newspaper, right? And number two is syllabus. Many people think that the syllabus has to be studied in the way it has been mentioned. No, unfortunately, the syllabus is randomized, unorganized. There are redundancies and there are duplications. The one I presented to you today is the organized syllabus, but the same thing is scattered, mixed across the two papers. So one has to understand the flow, one has to understand the logical continuity and the logical flow of the topics. That's only when one can understand it better. And the third problem with anthropology is when I started teaching, one of the greatest difficulties was there were no resources. But since I'm an alumnus of the university and I'm active in the academic fora, I had access to the libraries, journals, and all that. But today, there is too much of information. And this obsession with the topper's notes. That is one thing. Many students straight away start off with the topper's notes. Just imagine, for someone to top this exam, a lot of effort must have gone into it. And there's a lot of foundational concepts they must have gone through. A lot of theoretical understandings, hard work has gone into it. And the so-called toppers' notes are only the concise summaries of the topics. There's a lot more that is behind that topper's notes. So do not think that, by reading the topper's notes, one can succeed. No. I mean, you should reach that level where your notes will become the topper's notes. And with every revision that you do, your notes become more and more concise. And if you're thorough with the subject, all your paper 2 notes in flashcards will fit into your pocket. Because the one look at that particular topic or the summary should give you the entire idea, and it should push into your immediate memory from your long-term memory. So that's one thing. So don't get obsessed with the resource. Most of the resources, I would say, that's available are not actually written by people who are academically qualified in anthropology. Anthropology is not just a discipline, it's also a method, a methodology. There is a way in which it has to be studied, there is a way in which it has to be taught. And there are connections that exist between the topics. Biology, when we discuss, we have to invoke culture. When I discuss culture, I need to invoke the biological dimensions. When I discuss structure, I need to talk about function. When I talk about function, I need to talk about symbol, so many things. So read credible sources, read the foundational textbooks. I have a blog. I'll give you the address because I can't give you the full book list. But if you go through that, I have made a list of books that one can study if you are not planning to take any professional help like coaching. And these are the things I thought I should, make it clear that no subject is easy, no subject is inherently tough. It's all about how you make of it, what you make of it. And this exam is about three things. I always believe in it. Clarity of thought. This clarity of thought only comes with an enormous amount of effort. You should either read, or for people who join us, it's our responsibility to ensure you have the clarity of thought. But at what level I'm talking about? That even after 1 year or 2 years or 10 years, you pick up a random book in the airport, assume, in anthropology, or any academic journal in anthropology, when you open and start reading it, it should make sense to you. That's the clarity of thought. Range of application. Holism is all about looking at things from a 360-degree perspective. So even if I'm looking at something like fertility or mortality, I need to look at all the dimensions: religious, economic, there are gender dimensions to that. There are feminist implications and explanations to that. There is religious, psychological, medical, economic. So many dimensions exist for a concept as mundane as fertility or mortality or migration, or something like health or a disease or the spread of the diseases. Anthropology is a holistic discipline. Your answers should also reflect holism. And that's where the range of applications come. And third, obviously, is your ability to express. On the day when the exam happens, nobody is bothered what book you read, whose lecture you heard. Everyone, there's only one medium through which you are communicating to the examiner that you are worthy enough to be selected, you deserve to be in the civil services, and that is your answer. And that answer, that the exam is the arena where you're supposed to prove your worth. And all this training, hard work you're putting in has to ultimately get translated into meaningful answers, precise answers. For that, you need communication skills. And number two, you also need to practice a lot. I don't think the great sports persons like Roger Federer or Virat Kohli or even great Sachin Tendulkar have stopped practicing every day because they already reached the zenith of their careers, right? I'm sure Cristiano Ronaldo is still practicing, whether he has a league match or not. He still practices every day. Everyone does that. So there is nothing like enough. The same topic you read 100 times, you'll have 100 different insights into it. So practicing is important. So any preparation, whether you're taking anthro or any other subject, it doesn't matter. These are the inputs you people should religiously believe in. I'm yet to see somebody who cleared this exam without hard work. I'm yet to see somebody who got into this exam without practicing writing or reading and continuously going on adding value to whatever they have prepared. So those are the things I thought I should share with you. I don't want to go into the specifics of the details, but let me also tell you what is our strategy. There is a way, as I told you, anthropology has to be taught. There's a way in which it has to be learnt. And we follow that kind of a protocol here at Vajiram. I am Karthik, and I have my colleague, Mr. Vinoy Krishna, who will be handling physical anthropology. Some of you must have met him. He teaches science and tech. And then we have our classes every single day. October 6th is when we are starting. 5:30 p.m. is the classes. And those who have your classes, GS classes scheduled at the time, we will adjust that for you in case you choose anthro. And 2.5 hours every single day. About 24 months is what anthropology takes. That's how intensive we look at the topics. And you will have class tests You will also have comprehensive test papers after the syllabus is over. And very carefully, meticulously crafted study material. Printed books will be given to you. And that's not all. You will also have a lot of digital handouts coming your way, because all the contemporary topics or any value additions or any current any events that must have some kind of even remotely an anthropological bearing, uh, you'll get to have those handouts coming to you through the study portal. And writing PYQs, discussing questions is a normal part and parcel of the lectures. And most importantly, some of you may not be taking the exam immediately after the syllabus is over, or you may be appearing for the mains a little later. You will continue to have our hand holding even long after your batch is over with us. You will continue to receive the handouts. You can continue to send your practice answers if you're writing in PYQs. We are always available. You can meet us anytime, and interact with us on the email also if you're not in Delhi. So this journey is not going to end with the classes. It actually begins once the classes are over, because much amount of work comes after the classes are over. And you clear the prelims and come, and we'll enroll you into the test series free of cost. You don't have to pay again. And those test series are the ones that will going to make you exam ready for that year. That's why, and they change every year. So after your prelims results are out and you clear it, you're most welcome to come and take the test series. If you are a student of Vajiram Anthropology, you don't have to pay again. So those are some of the important aspects about our optional program I thought I should share with you. And our training, anthropology, both me and Mr. Vinoy, when areas that overlap with GS come as a part of our schedule, we enhance the scope of those topics so that, your GS also is taken care of. Those areas that overlap, you don't have to specially study them. In fact, you are doing much more than what the general studies normally demands. So you're saving a lot of time and effort there. Okay. Optional, I told you, 24 weeks is the minimum it takes, and almost classes 2.5 hours every day. And there will be around 13 to 15 tests you have to write. And then you have comprehensive tests after that. And after that, you can also do your PYQs and also the test series. So the classes part of it, of course, it takes at least 24 weeks, because that's the intensity and level to which we discuss. Okay. And I'm just answering the questions. Give me a second. So you can write to me, anthro@gmail.com. Karthik.anthro. I have given a self-study or the list of books, not just for self-study. If you want to really, read the foundational texts in anthropology, Karthik.guru is my blog. So I have written some interesting blogs for the students like you. So go through that and it will give you an insight into the books. Please read something that's credible, right? Many people read zoology books for physical anthropology. For God's sake, there's no reason for anthropology to emerge when you already have another discipline doing the same kind of work. And mind you, you're getting trained by people who are academically qualified in those respective disciplines. And we know how a topic has to be not only taught, but the way it has to be dealt by you in the exam. And please read the sources which are credible, and don't rush and run after the online material unless and until it is from a credible university or a credible organization. So that's why the veracity of the information is more important. There's only one simple success in this, one simple tip I want to give you. UPSC is all about what not to read. What to read, you have tons of information I'll give you. But what not to read is something you have to resist yourself from downloading everything that you come across that has ANTH written in its name. Okay. Yeah. From where? Can you scroll? These are also YouTube questions? Huh? These are not YouTube. Okay. Bhavishya Raj, what is my view on book Sapiens? Yuval Noah Harari has shot into limelight because of he is an Israeli anthropologist and he has written many books. And Sapiens became popular because he started narrating the story of human evolution in a language that is amenable to all the people. And by the way, today you have illustrated versions of his books, which is something like Asterix and other comics, and beautiful versions have come out. So you can very well read, but not for the purpose of the exam, because most of them are the part and parcel of the textbooks. Jatin, I just answered you. Just see the book list there. And any questions you may have, you can please mail me. I will surely answer. The best books for anthropology. Pallavi, I think that also should answer your question. Presently, I'm doing my final year degree. I want to start my UPSC and want to take Anthro as my optional. Can you please suggest how to read some valuable books? Start with the basics. You can even, in fact, start with NCERT. The basic foundational concepts like Indian society and all. Or pick up any of one book, any small book, or there are many online resources. Go to download IGNOW, for example. Or even if you think that is very difficult you will understand IGNOW when the classes are happening. But even there's a Kerala state 12th class, 11th class and 12th, they have included anthropology. One of my own teachers is the editorial board of those books. So you can read any one of that. Just go online and just type what is anthropology, and you have some beautiful online resources. You can go to Alabama University, or there are many open universities abroad, open school programs. So very basics, because I consider UPSC to be MA honors level. So most of them will not be sufficient. You may have a basic understanding, but they lack the depth that you need to have to compete in this exam. But do go through it. If a book is worth reading, it's worth buying. So, and don't waste money if you are planning to take coaching, because you don't need to refer to any book. Everything comes in the form of printed notes, handouts, and should something has to be read by you, we will give it to you. Pranav Pandey, online and offline, there's no difference, Pranav. I think the world is adapting to both the worlds, the physical world and the cyber world. Many people find it equally convenient to attend online classes. Sorry. Vasudha Mani, how to start making notes. Vasudha, if I'm allowed to call you that, it's like me telling you theoretically how to swim. We don't read a manual on how to swim and then jump into water. So making notes has its own strategy. Sorry, I will surely take you through that process myself. But normally, class notes, our lectures are your ready-made answers most of the time, 90% of the time. The way we structure the lecture is the way you should structure your answer. And as long as you have the class notes, more than 60% of the work is done. Our printed notes will have a little more extra than what we teach in the class, because not everything can be taught, is because there are hundreds of examples for everything. So you should go and read, blend class notes with the printed material and make your own notes. And that would be when you write something, it goes into long-term memory. There is a link between your right hand coordination and your language centers in the brain, something we'll see later on in linguistic anthropology. So not just right hand, your hand coordination. So there's a link between our ability to communicate and when we write. So please keep writing. How much time do we need to give every day? The class itself is going to be 2.5 hours. I think if you are thorough in the class, attentive in the class, you will take 15 minutes or 20 minutes to revise the topic, if at all. But when you are writing your tests, you should take them very seriously. It's because if you are lackadaisical or if you are taking it easy, then later on it becomes tough. Can we ignore course? You want to take the ignore course for the exam, Aniket? Please don't. If you want to do something in ignore, take it, but not for the exam. Yeah. Thank you. Please, not for the exam. You will get lost in anthropology and forget the civil service examination. Okay? But you don't need to take the course for this exam. You can definitely read the books, but that will come much later, if at all you want to. But you don't need to, because most of the work and effort is done by us faculty. There are some areas I will tell you, but you don't have to. Okay? Can you just scroll up? Let me quickly go through those questions. We should join anthropology class June. You're aiming for 26. Kartikeya, nice name. You can join any time you want. You can take it in October, you can take it in June. But if you're planning to, if you're doing GS also, might as well do both of them together, so that you will not lose the what shall I say, the focus. Or you want to do anthropology after you finish the GS also is also fine with me. But the more earlier you do, the merrier it is because multiple revisions you can do, and that will definitely help in this exam. And can you scroll down, please? I think it's the same message you posted again. Come down. No, that also is answered. Come down. Oh. Sonal, you are my student, all right? Come down. I think I just answered that question, Sonal, on ignore. I've answered Kartikeyan's question. Or niche? Or niche? Yeah, of course, Omkar. If I don't discuss it, in fact, all of us do that. If we don't discuss the PYQs, how will we know the scope of the topic we are discussing? And PYQs actually set the context in which we are going to discuss some of the topics. And the scope of the topics, in some cases, are dynamic. So they change every year with the exam. So that's the reason why. And also, after your prelims is over, we will try to identify some important areas which require some extra emphasis, because there's some kind of patterns exist. And those patterns, not that the whole syllabus shouldn't be revised, you have to, but some areas you need to practice more, is because certain patterns emerge when you look at the question papers in a long-term perspective. And PYQs also, I normally tell my students, don't go beyond 2015, because the syllabus, the pattern, and everything changed. So you want to analyze or assess something, look at everything from 2015 onwards. Harsh, you have started just now. Is it correct time to go for the optional? Any time is a good time, Harsh. The sooner the better, as I keep telling you, is because if you are not engaged academically, or if you're not engaged professionally, then you can start doing your work. This gentleman here was my student. He works, and such a committed student that 7:30 never missed a class, and 15 minutes to 20 minutes before the class he used to go and attend to his work. So there are people who don't have the luxury of having the full day for preparation. There are people who work and do it. I have had mothers, yeah, mothers with newborns who attend my class. I have pregnant women attending my classes. I have gentlemen with many personal and other professional commitments. So it all is left to how you want to navigate through this exam. And this exam is a beautiful experience. It's not just the result, or not, we say it's not just the destination, but the journey also is equally important. And anthropology, let me tell you, trust me, I'm not again exaggerating, is going to be a way of life. Anthropology is a way of life. And what we are going to do in the class is packaging our experiences as topics that we discuss in the class. The way we look at other people will not be the same again. The way we experience our society, our people, the world is never going to be the same again. It teaches you objectivity, it teaches you to celebrate diversity, and it teaches you to be more sensitive to everything around you. So anthropology that way is going to help you even parallelly in GS, as I told you. So if you are planning to take anthropology with the GS, there is always a lot of intersectionality, cross-cutting topics, and a lot of give and take also. So left to you. It all depends on your comfort levels. You don't have to read the Kerala book if you are a beginner. If you want to know what is anthropology, you don't even have to source that book. You can go to any online resource and just type what is anthropology, and you'll get beautiful resources. Okay. Anthropology gases are overlapping with GS. That's what I just told you, Abhinaya, that if you approach our office, they will shift your GS batch so that it won't clash with your optional subject. Okay. Yes, you can, Dheeraj. Many people who work are in my class already, and they do it online. And my classes are either at 7:30 or at 5:30, so that it helps people who are working to also take the classes. So that's an advantage in itself. Okay. And thank you so much. I wish you all the very best. God bless you, whatever may be your optional. And I also congratulate you for choosing to appear for this exam. That itself is the greatest feat, according to me. And you constitute a very small proportion of the student population of India who even are willing to think of competing in this exam. And trust me, the journey is beautiful, not just the destination. So all the best. God bless you. If you still have any questions, Harsh and others, please write a mail to me. I will surely answer. Okay. Thank you so much. God bless you.